or several, we've talked about this several times. There is that verse in Matthew that says, um, to the effect of those that keep the commandments and teach others to do so will be the greatest in the kingdom, and those that do not keep the commandments and teach others to do the same will be the least in the kingdom. And we talked about, greatest and least, but they'll both be in the kingdom. And, what does that mean, greatest and least? I mean, it seems so weird to think about ranks in heaven. So when I'm driving around, I listen to, various teachings and whatnot. So after we had that last conversation, of course, this is typical God, the way he works. I was listening to some guy who was, they have the Torah portions every week. Every Jew in the country is on the same portion. And I was listening to them as I was driving. So because it's really the only program that I can just hit the button when it gets to the end and it goes to the next one. So I don't have to pull over and try to find something. So I was listening to this, and I listened to several of the Torah portions. And I didn't know where it was, because I'm not listening to follow along with them. It's just, something. So I heard this one that was really good. And sometimes I will, pull over and write the thing down so I can listen to it again. And this was one of those. It was really good. And it was this Torah portion entitled tetze, or it means in my statutes. And it was, going through because when you do a Torah portion, it's like 5 or 6 or 7 chapters from the Torah. And then there's another 5 or 6 or 7 chapters from typically the prophets. And then if they're messianic, there's another 5 or 6 chapters from the New Testament. So there's no way you can do a study on it. It's just, as much as they can cram into an hour or two. So I'm listening to this, and he's talking about in my statutes. And I was thinking, that's weird. And he's talking about these people that seem to be drawn to that kind of thought. And he went on to talk about, the entire world, all the people in the world. And then set apart from all the people in the world were the Jews. And then set apart from the Jews were the Levites. And then set apart from the Levites were the priests, the children of Aaron, I guess, and then set apart from them was the high priest. So there's all these steps, and the case he was making was if you were set apart to the tribe of Levi, but you were one of the other brothers that wasn't of Aaron, you still served, but your service was typically, and he mentioned the names of this tribe. Those were the guys that would shoulder the curtains and the tabernacle, because they're hugely heavy, and, you can't let any of this stuff be, dirtied or whatever. You have to use caution when you're moving. So this tribe was in charge of the curtains, and this other tribe was in charge of all the logs, and this other tribe was in charge of the fittings, and then, the ark, and, and all this stuff. All of these groups had their own deal. That was their thing. They were set apart to do that thing. And the case that he was making was all of these events had to happen, and they had to happen in the right order, or you wouldn't have the tabernacle. The guys with the flooring had to show up first and do that if they had flooring. And then the building posts would show up, and then the coverings would show up, and then the clasps would show up, and all the stuff that goes in. It had to be done in its order. So in order to get to the priests, who would do what the priests do, in order to get to the high priest, who would do what the high priest does. And his point was just this. Out of all of these groups, everyone was sanctified or set apart, and it kept getting into a smaller and smaller group. Each group was given something more to do. The world had these things that they needed to do. Well, the people of Israel had these things. And then the Levites had these things. And the priests had these things, and they all sort of built on each other. But the point was, none of that could happen if one of those people didn't do their gig. So and I'm thinking, my gosh, that's like ranks in heaven. Because it's, we think of rank as general and private. And in this Torah portion, he was explaining ranks. And he didn't use those terms, but I'm thinking this in my mind, and I could be totally off. But he was drawing the picture of everyone has something to do that's equally as important as the other. So you could classify that as a rank. That's your job to do that, and you have to do that. and it may seem unimportant, but if you don't do that, then the next guy can't do that, and then the temple can't be built, and then the priest can't come, and then the high priest can't come, and it all fits together. So I was thinking, gosh, that's a picture of, how to answer that question. How could there be ranks in heaven? And I bet that's, I'm betting, big deal. I bet, that and $5 will get you a Frappuccino at Starbucks. But I bet that that's kind of the picture of the ranks in heaven, not one more important than the other. And that's the same picture he makes of husbands and wives. They each have a job, or many jobs in the case of my wife, and they have to do those jobs. It's not one that's more important than the other, but if you don't get one done, the other's not going to work. And, so I was reading through or listening to that, and I pulled over and, I wrote the thing down, and I wrote down the name, tetze or something, I don't know how you say it, something like that. And then I looked it up when I arrived home, and would you care to guess when that Torah portion is read? On my birthday. Well, think about that. I have been drawn, since I became a Christian, to the Old Testament, to the statutes, it's always been I can't even explain it. It just draws me to that stuff.
Wow.
And that was the Torah portion that was read May 17th, 1957.
Wow.
And I thought, gosh, that's better than Jane Dixon, And I was wondering, if any of you think that's weird, give me your birth date, and I'll find out what the Torah portion is. And you can see if those are the things you're drawn to. Because, of course, it could be a coincidence, but we know there's no coincidence.
Well, so can I make a comment regarding that?
Of course.
So I think that God blesses those who serve Him. And I think that the church, like Andy cooks at church, like Dan cleans and he gets paid to do that, and there's people that do the AV stuff. And I think that it all comes together and everybody has different giftings.
Yeah.
And because they serve like you serve in the Bible study, because they serve, God blesses them. Because when you go do God's work, you're going to get blessed. That's what my mentor.
Well, that's true. But the bigger picture too is that all of those pieces have to fit together.
Yeah.
If Andy's not cooking and what's his name's not cleaning and I'm not doing what I do, and then it's not a complete body. And it's just so weird, coincidence, right? That was my birthday. So anyway, okay.